Hello, my name is Garchompro, and I've been Challenger since Set 2. What I'd like to talk about in this video is the best legends and how to play them. What I'll be doing is going through the legends in terms of ranking. I'll start with the legend I think is the best, and then move on to the legend that I think is the worst, going through every legend in between, as well as discussing how to play them, what comps to play with them generally, as well as what augments you should be taking with that legend and how to play around those augments. So first we'll start with the S tier, and the only legend that I have in the S tier is Ezreal. Now Ezreal is the legend that I'm currently using, the legend that I'll probably be using in tournament this Saturday, and he's by far the most popular legend in high elo. So why is Ezreal so popular, and what makes him so good, and how do you play him? So part of what makes Ezreal so popular right now is he just got buffed. Buried Treasures got buffed to immediately give the component as well as give extra gold. What this means is that if you take Buried Treasures at 2-1, you're going to be up a good amount of combat strength, and then you're also going to be up a bit of eco over people who take a similar power augment that doesn't give gold. With Ezreal, you typically want to always be taking Buried Treasure 1 and Buried Treasure 2. They're just two of the best silver and gold augments in the game. You're just going to get a lot of free tempo. Whenever you take this, you want to just start slamming items as soon as possible. Whenever you're playing Ezreal, you just want to make items. You're going to get so many items throughout the course of the game that even if your items are a little subpar, it's going to be fine. Your items will end up working out at the end of the day anyways. So you just want to make those items, and you want to kind of push the tempo of the lobby. You want to be stronger than people if possible. If you're trying to play from a lose streak, Ezreal is generally not the best legend. Something like Vladimir is going to be a bit better from a lose streak. So you're pretty much always going to be taking Buried Treasures 1 and 2. Try and push that. Buried Treasures 3, a lot of people take Buried Treasures 3. I kind of disagree with it. I don't think it's amazing for a Prismatic. It's fine for a Prismatic. It's not bad. But there's definitely better Prismatic augments out there. So you definitely should be looking at your 4 other augments whenever you see a Prismatic 2-1 and see if you can take one of those, because like a strong combat power Prismatic is just going to give you a lot more power in the late game than Buried Treasure. Whereas the silver and gold augments aren't going to necessarily give you as much late game power as Buried Treasures 1 and 2. They're going to give you a bit more late game power than Buried Treasures 1 and 2, but it's not going to be like that much more. So the Ezreal player typically won't be that behind late game, and the fact that they can get ahead early game with these is really powerful. At 3-2, all of these are quite good. I really like Big Grab Bag, which is the gold one. If you're behind on gold, I pretty much always take this one right here. If you're not behind on gold, you're probably better off just taking a combat augment. Unless your other augments suck, then you can take this. The silver one's okay. 8 gold and a component is fine. The random component, just like one component's not great for silver, but the fact that you get 8 gold is really good. So again, if you're behind on your eco, I highly recommend taking Tiny Grab Bag. That way you can kind of just catch up to the lobby. Giant Grab Bag, if you're playing a 3-cost reroll, I really like this. A Lesser Champion Duplicator is going to be really good. Of course, you're playing a 3-cost reroll, you just got to free one of your 3 costs. I don't love it if you're not playing a 3-cost reroll though. 3 random components and 15 gold isn't necessarily the full power of a Prismatic. Once you throw in the Lesser Champ Duplicator, it is, but like if you're playing around 4 costs, Lesser Champion Duplicator is not doing a ton for you. So I don't recommend taking Giant Grab Bag if you're not playing a 3-cost reroll comp. And then in terms of the 4-2 augments, Well-Earned Comforts 1 and 2 are pretty bad. Just the value they give is not very good. For instance, Cybernetic Bulk 2 is 350 HP for every unit with a component. This is 111 health for each item equipped. So even if you have like full 3 items on a unit, they're only getting 333 health as opposed to Cybernetic Bulk, which would be 350 for like one component. So definitely a lot weaker than a lot of other gold and silver augments. That being said, Prismatic Well-Earned Comforts is very good. Being able to get 24 attack speed for free on your carry is really, really powerful. And then an additional 360 health, which is not bad. So Well-Earned Comforts 3 is a very good take at 4-2. The way you play Ezreal, again, is you just want to be slamming items and you want to be pushing the tempo of the lobby. You can really play anything from Ezreal. All he's doing is giving you items. Doesn't matter what comp you end up playing. Typically a comp that has like 2 carries and a tank. That way you can use, a full like 9 full items. You don't want to play like a comp that just has like 1 unit. So something like a Rek'Sai reroll doesn't make as much sense because there you're like primarily just itemizing Rek'Sai. But for most compositions, you can just play Ezreal into it and it's going to be good. The next legend I'd like to talk about is going to be the first legend I have on my A tier and is what I think is the second best legend in the game, and that is going to be Vladimir. Now to start things off, if you're looking for a legend where you can just click all 3 of their augments every game and not have to worry about it too much, I do highly recommend Vladimir. You can really just click all 3 of his augments and it's going to be fine. That being said, what makes Vladimir pretty good right now is there's going to be a lot of Ezreal players in your lobbies. And what they're going to be doing is they're going to be pushing tempo by making items really quickly on stage 2, and they're going to be really strong at that point. What this means is that if you're not playing Ezreal with them, it's going to be really hard to play stage 2. You're just going to be weaker in power, right? Later in the game, once you get more items from like Wolves and Raptors, you can start to catch up to the Ezreal players, but during the early game, you're just going to be weak. The nice thing about Vladimir is it's kind of a way to get around that, as if you're lose streaking early game, it's not the biggest deal because you have transfusion and you're going to be scaling up your transfusion value. Then come like stage 4, stage 5, you're sitting here with 3 combat augments on your Vladimir, and you're just going to be able to outscale the opposing Ezreal players. In terms of playing Vladimir, some comps that use him really well is going to be Azir uses it really well because a lot of the value of Vladimir is due to the fact that you have transfusion, so you want fights to go pretty long. Azir likes to scale into fights. I think challengers use Vladimir pretty well as well, just due to the fact that you have like frontline Yasuo and stuff, so they enjoy the extra HP to allow them to live a little bit longer. And then I also think Rek'Sai reroll is another really good comp from Vladimir, just due to the fact that the Bruiser scales directly off the transfusion, and fights go pretty long, so Rek'Sai reroll is going to want to hit those Ascension procs. In terms of playing Vladimir, Transfusion 1 is an okay augment. There's a lot of really good silver augments, so you may want to take one of the other silver augments if you see something that's a bit better. You see something here like Blood Money or Risky Moves or Buried Treasures 1 or something, you're probably going to want to take that instead of Transfusion 1 because it's a little bit weak for silver, but it's not a bad augment at all. And then Transfusion 2 and Transfusion 3 are fantastic augments. If you're playing Vladimir, you almost always insta-click these two. They're very, very powerful. You're going to be really strong in the late game if you have these two. So highly recommend Transfusion 2 and 3. They can play into pretty much any composition. Of course, not all compositions are going to value Transfusion equally. Something like Sorcerers or a reroll comp isn't going to value it as much as something like Azir or Rek'Sai. But that being said, you can play any comp from the Transfusions. Then at 3-2, Battle Ready 2 is fantastic. It is one of the best gold augments in the game, and you're pretty much always going to be insta-clicking this unless you have something like really broken for your spot instead. In terms of Battle Ready 3 and 1, they're okay augments. They're a little below average for their tiers, so if you see something that's good, you should be taking that instead of these two. But if your other 4 augment options suck, then just simply go with Battle Ready 1 or 3. They're not bad, but Battle Ready 2 is the fantastic one. Then at 4-2, Final Ascension is fantastic, goes well into pretty much every composition. So feel free to take Final Ascension almost every time. Just the fact that you get a flat 15% more damage at the start of combat is really, really good. And then of course after 15 seconds it triples to 45%. So Final Ascension is just great even in like slightly faster comps. Something like Ionia, Final Ascension is actually quite good in. And then in terms of Ascension and Partial Ascension, you want to be playing these in compositions that have really strong front lines that end up stalling out fights. So something like Azir is really good with this, something like Rek'Sai is really good with this, but something like Challengers would not be because fights are over generally really quickly in Challengers because you just have a lot of upfront damage, not a lot of frontline. So do recommend Partial Ascension and Ascension in stallier comps, definitely not in faster comps. The next legend I'd like to talk about is going to be Poro. Now the thing with Poro is nerfed a bit from last patch. They've nerfed the really OP combat augments, stuff like Long Distance Pals, or Gifts from the Fallen got nerfed this patch, so Poro is a bit worse due to the fact that the main reason you would take Poro last patch is to get those OP augments. That being said, Poro is still fine. Poro is probably the hardest legend in the game to play though, but it's really good if you want to play flexibly for certain OP augments. Something like a Noxus Crown at 2-1 or like a Shrima's Legacy or a Sentinel Spirit is just really OP at 2-1, allow you to like get a free top 4. There's some really strong augments in the game that Poro allows you to hit. That being said, I do recommend Ezreal instead of Poro if you're just trying to play flexibly. It's nice that you just kind of have that cushion in case you low roll. You can always just take Buried Treasures at 2-1 or the Grab Bag at 3-2 with Ezreal. So Poro is kind of just outclassed by Ezreal in terms of flexibility this patch. That being said, is still a solid legend, just a little bit outclassed. Next, I would like to talk about Veigar. Now, Veigar currently is actually bugged. The thing with Veigar is Jeweled Lotus 1 and Jeweled Lotus 2 got buffs in the most recent patch. Jeweled Lotus 1 got moved to 50% crit chance, and Jeweled Lotus 2 got moved to 15% crit chance. However, the bug is that Veigar doesn't give the buffed versions, he still gives the old versions, which makes Veigar quite a bit worse than he could be. I think if the buffs actually went through, Veigar would probably be the second best legend in the game, but currently I have him at the 4th best. Now, in terms of playing Veigar, you're going to be wanting to play for the combat power with them, right? Something similar to Vladimir here, where we're going to be playing more to stage 3, stage 4, which is pure combat power. We want to do as much damage as possible. Some compositions that use Veigar really well. I think that Sorcerer type builds use Jeweled Lotus really well, so you can take Jeweled Lotus into those builds. And then builds like Challengers that don't have a bunch of flat AD or AP use Tiny Power really well. Another comp that I think uses Veigar very well is Noxus. I think Veigar is actually the best legend for Noxus. Jeweled Lotus is fantastic for Darius and Katarina, and then Tiny Power is also quite good for them as well. So if you want to be playing a lot of Noxus, highly recommend Veigar. In terms of playing Veigar, you're pretty much never going to be taking Jeweled Lotus 1. The unbuffed version is just not that good, so try and take some other silver augment instead. You will pretty much always take Prismatic Jeweled Lotus. Prismatic Jeweled Lotus is one of the best combat augments in the game, so highly recommend taking that every time. And then Jeweled Lotus 2 you'll be taking some of the time. If you're taking Jewel Lotus 2, the biggest thing to keep in mind is that you should probably be going for Guardbreaker and Hand of Justice on your carry. This is just due to the fact that you only get a bonus 10% critical strike chance, which only moves them to 35% crit chance, which is just not good enough for a gold augment. That being said, if you can build like Guardbreaker and Hand of Justice on that unit, they're going to be getting an additional 40% crit chance, so they'll be moving up to like 75% crit chance, which is actually reasonable. So definitely make sure that you're building into those crit items if you have Jeweled Lotus 2, or else you're just not going to be critting enough. Jeweled Lotus 3, it's fine if you don't go for crit items, because with Jeweled Lotus 3, you're going to be sitting at 70% crit chance, which is fine. But again, if you go for like Guardbreaker, Hand of Justice, still good with that. In terms of 3-2 with Veigar, you're generally going to be taking Tiny Power. Tiny Power is a fantastic augment. After it got buffed, it just gives a lot of value. The one time you might not want to be taking Tiny Power is if you're playing a comp like Sorcerers, where you already have so much flat AP that you don't really care. But if you're going to be sitting here playing something like Challengers or Ionia, the Tiny Power is going to be really good. So if you're playing Veigar, you're definitely going to be playing for Tiny Power, and I pretty much always insta-click Tiny Power when I'm playing Veigar. In terms of 4-2, you have Ascension. Now the awkward thing about Ascension is it doesn't synergize very well with Jeweled Lotus and Tiny Power. Jeweled Lotus and Tiny Power are just about doing a lot of upfront damage at the start of the fight, you know, letting like your Lux or your Yasuo or your Kai'Sa just one-shot units. Ascension in general doesn't do very well with that, just because you want to be stalling out your fights. That being said, one thing you can do is play like Rek'Sai from Veigar. You can skip Jeweled Lotus for Rek'Sai, go Tiny Power for Rek'Sai, that's good, and then go Ascension for Rek'Sai. That's a pretty solid option. Again, you might be playing something like Azir Lux. You go Jeweled Lotus, you skip Tiny Power, you go Ascension. That's a fine option as well. That being said, Ascension on Veigar is just significantly worse than Ascension on Vladimir because you don't have the Transfusion synergy. Ascension is good if you have like a lot of tank items or a really stally comp, but generally don't recommend taking Ascension with Veigar. Final Ascension is definitely tankable in a lot of situations just because it's good. Again, you're getting that 15% damage amp at the start of fight, but don't be expecting to get to the Ascension proc with most of your team alive if you're taking your Veigar augments. The next legend I have is Master Yi. So Master Yi, still in the A tier, is the 5th best legend in my opinion. And the thing about Master Yi is, again, you're going to be taking him similar to Vladimir, where you have that scaling combat power, right? Vladimir has Transfusion to scale, Master Yi has Pumping Up to scale, so the idea is once you get to the late game, Master Yi is going to be able to outscale players like Ezreal. Pumping Up is a very good augment. You're generally going to be taking Pumping Up. All 3 of them are good whenever you're playing Master Yi, so feel free to take the Pumping Ups at 2-1. Then at 3-2, similar to Vladimir, Battle Ready 2 is a fantastic augment. You should almost always be clicking this. Battle Ready 3 and 1 are fine if you're low rolling your other augments. But if you have something else offered that's good, feel free to take those instead of Battle Ready 1 and 3. And then Gotta Go Fast is very interesting. And Gotta Go Fast is actually a big part of the reason why Master Yi is good right now. They recently buffed Gotta Go Fast in the most recent patch, which actually makes it very solid, specifically in Sorcerers. Sorcerers want to be casting a lot, especially Vel'Koz. And Gotta Go Fast is very, very good with Vel'Koz in particular. So if you're trying to play for Sorcerers, I actually recommend playing for Master Yi. You can tank Pumping Up, you can even take Battle Ready, and then you can take Gotta Go Fast and just one-shot the enemy team before they have a chance to one-shot you. Of course, Gotta Go Fast isn't the greatest in every composition. Something like Azir is not going to be using it that well, whereas something like Vel'Koz is. So you really want to be playing Gotta Go Fast in those mana generation compositions. And it's going to be really strong. That being said, you can always just take Pumping Up and maybe Battle Ready and just play flexibly. Pumping Up into Battle Ready should be fine for something like Azir. It's not great for something like Challengers that already has a bunch of attack speed, but most comps that care about attack speed are going to enjoy Pumping Up. If you want to play something like Aphelios or Akshan, Pumping Up should be fine. If you want to play Zeri, although she's pretty bad right now, Pumping Up is fine, but I don't recommend going into Zeri with it. But yeah, any composition that utilizes attack speed is generally going to be enjoying Pumping Up, and any mana gen composition is going to be enjoying Gotta Go Fast. The final legend I have in A tier is going to be Ornn. Now, somewhat similar to Poro, Ornn is a little bit outclassed by Ezreal. If you're just trying to play for items, play for tempo, I would recommend going Ezreal instead of Ornn. The big reason is just that Ezreal is going to be giving you gold at 2-1, whereas Ornn isn't, which is a pretty good difference. That being said, Ornn is still definitely a viable legend and is strong, so I'll go through him. Latent Forge is pretty good. Again, it's a nice scaling augment. Right now, the tempo early game is pretty high, though, because you're going to be seeing a lot of buried treasure at 2-1, so just understand that you're probably going to be lose streaking with it, but Latent Forge is still fine. Portable Forge is an okay augment. I don't love it, but it's definitely takeable at 2-1. You can tempo pretty hard. The one nice thing about Portal Forge, unlike Buried Treasure, is you immediately get the item, whereas Buried Treasure, you have to wait 3 rounds for the full item. So you can probably be a bit stronger at 2-1 and 2-2 than the Ezreal players if you take Portable Forge. And then Living Forge got a buff and is actually very good now. It comes with a Ornn item anvil instead of a random Ornn item, so you actually get to like choose which one you have. I think Living Forge is a lot better than Buried Treasures 3. So I really like Ornn's 2 and Prismatic is very, very powerful. In terms of his 3-2 augments, they got nerfed. You're getting less gold than the Ezreal ones, but you actually get to pick your item. Medium Forge and Small Forge are still really strong. I think they're comparable to the Ezreal Silver and Golds. The Prismatic Ornn is not great at 3-2. Ornn Item Anvil and Component Item Anvil is just not really worth it for a Prismatic, right? Like the Gold Augment is an Ornn Item Anvil. So Large Forge isn't great. You only really take Large Forge if your options suck. Last patch, Large Forge was a bit better because Eternal Winter and Sniper's Focus were broken. And so if you high rolled one of those, it was basically Prismatic. Nowadays, though, the Ornn items are a bit more balanced. Eternal Winter is still really good, but the rest of them are all like solid, but not amazing. So Large Forge is really just not that great. And then in terms of 4-2, feel free to take Jobs Done or Job Well Done. They're pretty average silver and gold augments. So these are really good to take if your other options suck. But generally you want to be trying to take a combat augment at 4-2 because usually combat's going to be a bit better than items at 4-2. But Job Well Done and Jobs Done are definitely solid. Again, Masterful Job is not the greatest at 4-2. In addition, Medium Forge and Small Forge, similar to the Ezreal, if you are behind on eco, these are really good to take if you want to just supplement your eco and catch back up with the lobby. So that is good to keep in mind. You can really play anything from Ornn. It's generally just going to be based off of what Ornn item you get. So if you're getting something like Deathfire Grasp, of course you want to play for an AP composition. If you get something like Death's Defiance, you probably want to be playing towards something like a Yasuo or a Gwen that's actually going to be using that to drain tank. So you typically will just play around whatever Ornn item you get first whenever you're playing Ornn and go into a composition that fits that. Next, I'd like to move on to the B tier legends. I highly recommend playing one of the A or S tier legends, but the B tier legends definitely can do well. So I will definitely talk about them. And so the first one I have is Aurelion Sol, or Dragon King as China calls him. Now, the idea with Aurelion Sol here is we're going to typically be taking either Patient, Study, or Level Up. You generally don't want to be taking Cutting Corners. If you see Cutting Corners, just play the game and normally take a different silver augment. Now, when you take Patient Study, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to full open fort. You're going to want to sell all your units and basically play nothing during Stage 2, get that 5 lose streak, get that lose streak gold, and you're going to hit as high of eco as possible. Then at 3-2, you should be able to level 7. You may need to take Knowledge Download at 3-2, but what you should be doing is leveling to 7 at 3-2. Again, the Knowledge Download may help with that. And you're going to roll down at 3-2, get a strong board, and then after that, you're going to push for level 8. With Level Up, you can do something similar with Patient Study, where you open fort, you roll down 3-2 level 7, and then you get a strong board, push level 8, push level 9. Or you can actually play Level Up with a win streak. Level Up does pretty well on a win streak as well. So if you have a strong opener, feel free to go take Level Up and play a win streak. I actually talked about Level Up in a bit more detail in my Augments video that I released a couple months ago. It was for set 8, but it's basically the same principles apply to Level Up right now. At 3-2, Knowledge Download did get nerfed. Don't love this. I much prefer taking a Combat Augment. That being said, with Patient Study, you may need to take Knowledge Download to supplement it, so that way you can go 7 immediately and just get that quick power spike. That being said, with Level Up, you generally should be never taking Knowledge Download, and if you have the money, you should not be taking Knowledge Download. Only take Knowledge Download if you need it to be able to roll at 7. If you have enough money anyways, just take a Combat Augment. It's going to make you stronger. At 4-2, it pays to learn. You're generally not going to be taking this with Patient Study. Again, you may have taken Knowledge Download, and what you definitely don't want to be doing is taking 3 Econ Augments. You need to be taking a Combat Augment for sure at 4-2. With Level Up, you can actually consider taking It Pays to Learn, simply just due to the fact that the gold from It Pays to Learn does pretty well because Level Up scales better off of gold than XP, because of course you're basically turning 4 gold for 4 XP into 4 gold for 7 XP. So getting gold's a bit better with Level Up. So you can potentially take Level Up into It Pays to Learn and then like Fast 9 real quickly with that. Generally though, I prefer to be taking a Combat Augment with Level Up here. One thing you can do is, let's say you hit Cutting Corners and you had to skip your 2-win augment, you can consider taking It Pays to Learn at 4-2 if you want to push back your economy a bit, because it will give you a nice gold supplement at 4-2. It's not bad for an econ augment. So if you skipped Cutting Corners, you can definitely feel free to take It Pays to Learn. With Aurelion Sol, you generally want to be playing around 4-cost carries, so any 4-cost carry comp is going to be fine with Aurelion Sol. One nice thing about Aurelion Sol is it's a bit easier to play contested with him. If you want to be forcing Lux Azir, you can actually do this from Aurelion Sol, because most people are going to be rolling at either 3-5 or 4-1. With Aurelion Sol, you're going to be rolling at 3-2, so you're just going to hit the units first and beat out the people contesting you. The other legend that I have in B tier is going to be Urf. I think after Poro, Urf is going to be the second hardest legend in the game to play. This is just due to the fact that you need to be able to play a lot of different lines, right? You generally need to be playing around your tome, which means you need to be able to play a lot of different lines. That being said, I don't think the payoff is necessarily worth the difficulty of playing Urf. I think it's a lot easier to just play one of the legends I've talked about earlier and have good results that way. That being said, Urf is most definitely viable. And in terms of Earth, you generally want to be taking his 2-1. That's the whole reason you're taking Earth. Branching out's interesting at 2-1. It's not the greatest augment because you have potential low roll, but you also have potential to high roll. So you can take Branching Out if your other options suck. And then you're generally going to be taking Ancient Archives 1 and Ancient Archives 2. Again, if you want to see how Ancient Archives work, go check out my set 8 augment video. One unit that's really good to play though if you have Ancient Archives is going to be Teemo, due to the fact that you can't roll the Yordle or the Multicaster, so it enables you to tailor into your traits a lot better. So Ancient Archives 1, Ancient Archives 2 work pretty similar to the Buried Treasures in that they give you the gold, which allows you to push your economy. And then you take these and you typically want to be playing around a vertical. Some really good ones, Ionia is really good, into 6 Ionia. Challenger is really good, into 6 Challenger. Strategist is really good, you can play 5 Strategist, Lux Azir. Noxus is really good. You play 6 Noxus, Darius, Katarina. So those are some really strong options from the Ancient Archives. And if you can high roll one of those, you're in a good spot. 3-2, very similar to the Ezreal 3-2. I mean, it's the same as the Ezreal 3-2. I think it's a bit better on Earth because you don't have the items from the 2-1, so the value of getting more items here is a bit higher. Again, you generally want to be taking this though if your economy is a little behind and you want to catch back up. In terms of like the combat power, for instance, like 2 components at a gold is worse than the combat power of a general gold augment. But the 12 gold allowing you to catch back up here on your economy is huge. So feel free to take the silver and gold here if you want to catch back up on your eco. The prismatic, again, you should generally just be taking if you're playing a 3-cost reroll composition, as you want to be getting full value out of the lesser champion duplicator. The 4-2-1 is pretty solid as well. I mean, Vital Grab Bag here is basically the same thing as Big Grab Bag. So if you didn't take Big Grab Bag and you want to catch back up on your economy at 4-2, feel free to take this. I think the 12 gold at 3-2 is a bit better than the 15 gold at 4-2 though. So generally you want to be aiming towards the Big Grab Bag, but maybe you just need a bit of extra money. You can theoretically take both at once, but you generally want to be taking at least one like combat power augment. So don't recommend taking both. Final Grab Bag at the silver, again, is going to be pretty similar to the silver at 3-2. Instead of getting 8 gold, you're getting 12 gold here. But of course, 12 gold at 4-2 is going to be less than 12 gold at 3-2. So these are about similar in my opinion. You get a Reforger instead of a Remover. So these are pretty good options. One note that I did forget to mention is that if you're playing Ezreal or Earth, a lot of times you can actually bank on getting a Remover or a Reforger at 3-2. So like you can put an item on a unit that you may want to pop off later because there's a good chance you get a Remover, or you could even make an item that you're not sure if you'll want later because there's a good chance you get a Reforger. So that is one thing to keep in mind, that you can actually be playing around the Remover and Reforger if you're playing Earth or Ezreal. And then in terms of Earth's Grab Bag, 2 random components, Champion Duplicator, and a Spatula. I typically want to be playing this if you want to be playing towards the Spatula. This is actually quite a good augment if there is a spat you want, because the Champ Duplicator is also really good, allows you to get like a 2-star 4-cost a lot quicker. But you do need to be playing towards a comp that needs a Spatula, so something like Ionia or Challenger is going to be really good with this, as you can use that Spatula to fill it out with that augment. But yeah, only take this, of course, if you actually can immediately use the spat. Next, I'd like to move on to the C tier. Now, the C tier legends aren't great, but they are definitely playable, so I'll talk about them. Lee Sin is going to be what you want if you're going to be forcing a 1-cost reroll. If you want to force a 1-cost reroll, like you want to sit here and force Tristana or maybe Kale or something, Lee Sin is generally going to be your best option. Now, the nice thing about Lee Sin is actually his 3-2. Training reward is quite good. Being able to get a lesser champion duplicator, duplicate up that 1 cost, hit your board a lot quicker is really powerful, especially with that extra gold, allows you to just hit your board at 3-2 a lot quicker. In terms of 2-1, Shopping Spree is actually a pretty good augment, but it's not very good for like 1-cost reroll. You generally want to be playing Shopping Spree into like a fast 7, fast 8 comp, because you want to be pushing those levels. But Shopping Spree does allow you to stay strong throughout the game, but isn't great if you're trying to play reroll. Drake Trickster is an okay augment. It did get buffed to 2 gold here, so this is fine if you want to play reroll. It's not the greatest augment, but it's definitely takeable. On a Roll got nerfed pretty hard. I'm pretty sure it's still okay. I haven't seen anybody take it this patch yet, but I am pretty sure Honor Roll is still fine at Silver, although it's not great. But you really only need to be playing Honor Roll into a 1-cost reroll. It's not going to be good for like a 2-cost reroll or something. And then his 4-2 augment, money, and money are just bad augments. Don't take these. Do not recommend it. But yeah, you typically want to be taking Lee Sin for the 3-2 and maybe the 2-1 to force a 1-cost reroll. Next in the B tier, we have Twisted Fate. Now, Twisted Fate has kind of fallen out of the meta a bit. The thing with Twisted Fate versus Ezreal is if you just take Ezreal instead of Twisted Fate, you get more items and you get more components, right? So the comparison is pretty clear that Ezreal just gives you more potential value. The nice thing about Twisted Fate is if what you want to do is you just want to load into a game and hard force one composition, so feel free to go with Twisted Fate. That being said, loading into a game and hard forcing one composition is generally always going to be suboptimal, which makes Twisted Fate suboptimal because you're just getting less value. Typically in the current meta, you don't need best in slot on any units, so the value of getting best in slot is a lot lower. They nerfed like Zeke stacking, they nerfed Chalice stacking, so those broken strategies aren't as good. So Twisted Fate's value has gone down a lot. If you're taking Twisted Fate, you basically are taking him just for his 2-1. You're taking any of the Pandoras because you want to hard force some composition that needs specific itemization. Item Grab Bag, not a good augment. Seeing Devil, not a good augment. So you're basically just taking Twisted Fate for the Pandoras. Next, we have Pengu. Now, Pengu is actually a very interesting legend, and that one of Pengu's augments is very good, and the other two are really bad. Tiny Titans, not very good at 2-1. Tiny Titans is good at 3-2, but not at 2-1. If you have a Piltover start, it's very good, but outside of that, not good at 2-1. Metabolic Accelerator, similar to Tiny Titans, is good if you have a Piltover start. If you don't have a Piltover start, it's not a good augment. Tiniest Titan, however, at 2-1 is fantastic. Being able to get 2 HP and 2 gold per round is great. You can just sack during stage 2, get up a bunch of economy, you're going to be richer than people. You can roll down at level 6, level 7 with a good amount of HP because you've been saving the HP. Get strong, and then you're going to be able to use that supplemental income to get back to 50 gold really quickly, push to higher levels, and it's a very, very powerful augment. You can generally just have a nice safe top 4 with it. Highly recommend Tiniest Titan. Whenever I see this, I always take it at 2-1. I don't play Pengu, but I pretty much always take this augment even if I see it. So highly recommend Tiniest Titan. That's the main reason to play Pengu, but playing Pengu to high roll Prismatic is a little bit weird, so I don't recommend playing Pengu generally. 3-2, Item Grab Bag, just not a good augment. Don't recommend taking it. And then 4-2, again, the final grab bags and Earth grab bag. Similar to Earth, these are solid options. If your other options are bad or you need to recover a bit of economy, feel free to take these. But they're not like amazing, but they're definitely solid. But yeah, you're typically playing Pengu because you want to high roll Tiniest Titan, or you're trying to like force Piltover with Tiny Titans or Metabolic Accelerator. And then finally in the C tier, we have Draven. Draven, there was a world where Draven would have been the S tier legend, but they luckily nerfed Draven. And so now we don't have Draven completely dominating the meta and like ruining the way the game is played. But that being said, Draven did get nerfed. He's still somewhat playable. If you manage to high roll your start, Draven is quite good. Spoils of War is still a solid augment. If you have a strong opener, you can just push your economy really hard, start pushing levels, farm a bunch of extra money, and be strong throughout the game. I think generally the best way to play Draven right now, though, is you take Spoils of War and then take a combat augment on 3-2 and 4-2. But yeah, if you have a strong start, Spoils of War is good. If you don't have a strong start, Spoils of War is awful. So just keep that in mind. Draven's going to be a really inconsistent legend. But if you want to push for those win streaks, feel free to go for Draven. Personally, don't recommend it, though. Balanced Budget got nerfed. It's pretty bad now. Rolling for Days got nerfed. It's not great anymore. So you generally just want to be taking Spoils of War when you're playing Draven. Finally, I'd like to move on to the F tier. I do not recommend playing these legends. These legends are just not very good. First, we have Tahm Kench. Of the F tier legends, Tahm Kench is definitely going to be the best. You can make an argument for him in the C tier. That being said, the thing with Tahm Kench is you're taking him because you want a lot of money, you want to push levels, get high tier units. If you're trying to do that, I would recommend just playing Aurelion Sol instead. But I guess Tahm Kench is somewhat acceptable as well. The nice thing about Tahm Kench is his silver is quite good. AFK is actually pretty solid. It's definitely better than Aurelion Sol silver, but Rich Get Richer and Hedge Fund are just going to be worse than Aurelion Sol's 2-1 augments. So again, I just recommend taking Asol instead of Tahm Kench. But it plays similar where you're going to open for it and then roll down and become stronger later. Balanced Budget and Money are just not good augments, especially taking multiple econ augments is generally just not recommended. So you're pretty much always taking Tahm Kench for his 2-1, but he's usually just outclassed by Aurelion Sol. Next, we have Bard. Bard is just a really awkward legend in general. Bard's 4-2 did get nerfed, so his 4-2 is just basically untakeable. He has the same 3-2 as Ornn, so everything I said with Ornn applies at 3-2. If you want to catch back up on the economy, get some extra items, definitely great option at 3-2. Bard's 3-2 is definitely not his problem. His 2-1 is a little bit awkward. Caretaker's Ally is just not good. Like, by 3-2, because you're typically going level 6 on 3-2, by 3-2, a 2-star 3 cost is generally just not amazing. Like, if you have the items for it and the spot for it, it's great, right? Like, let's say I'm sitting here with a bunch of brawlers and a Titan's Bloodthirster. I'd love to get a Rek'Sai too, but, like, it's really likely that you just low roll, and if it doesn't fit your board, it's just not going to be good. So Caretaker's Ally is pretty bad. And then Caretaker's Favorite and Caretaker's Chosen are just not great in the current meta. The meta's pretty fast-paced right now. Ezreal is just pushing the tempo really, really hard. It's hard to get to level 8 right now. You really need to be rolling at level 7, and if you're sitting here behind an augment before level 8, you're generally not going to be having the greatest time. If you want to be getting some items quickly, I'd much prefer going for Ezreal because he's going to give you those immediately. And if you want to play for a legend that's going to be scaling into the late game, I much prefer playing something like Vladimir or Master Yi because they're actually going to scale harder than Bard, right? Transfusion is going to be more value than Caretaker's Favor in Stage 5, and you're not getting the full value of Caretaker's Favor until Stage 5. So Bard right now is just in a really awkward spot. If you want to play for the items, go Ezreal. If you want to play for scaling, go Vladimir or Master Yi instead. His 3-2 is good, of course, but if you want his 3-2, just go Ornn. And finally, the worst legend in the game is probably Caitlyn. Caitlyn, unfortunately, just got completely gutted in a lot of different situations. Starter kit got pretty gutted in the most recent patch, no longer gives a component. Don't recommend taking starter kit. Just getting like 2 of a 4 cost is not really worth a prismatic at all. It was worth a prismatic when it gave a component as well, but now it's just not that good. 1-2's 3 is like an okay augment, but it's not great. It's fine though. If your other options suck, you can take it, but again, it's still not that good. And Stars Are Born is just not a great augment. The one thing Stars Are Born is good at is, like, let's say I'm sitting here and I have like 5 Viegos at 2-1. I can take Stars Are Born and just wait till I see another Viego. Buy that Viego. Now I have 8 Viegos or something. You can do that with like a Kayle or Tristana or something. Pretty good in those scenarios where you can easily quickly 3-star a unit. That being said, outside of those scenarios, I don't like it that much. You get an upgraded 1 cost and an upgraded 2 cost, which makes you pretty strong until like 2-5, and then other people start hitting their upgrades and they're stronger than you because they have like a combat augment. So Stars Are Born just doesn't make you strong enough for long enough to make it actually worthwhile. And then Knowledge Download and Rolling for Days both got nerfed in the previous patch, which just makes them not that good of augments, so they're not really that takeable. So Caitlyn is just kind of in a really awkward spot. She kind of died for Aurelion Souls and Draven Sins here. They got nerfed, which nerfed her 3-2 and 4-2s. So she's really just not a good legend right now. Definitely do not recommend picking Caitlyn at the current time. If you made it to the end, I want to thank you for watching and make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed this content and want to see more. I'll definitely be doing this for future patches. I am a little sorry for getting this out a little late. I wasn't feeling great the past few days, so I waited to record this. That being said, in future patches, I'll try and get this video out on like Thursday or Friday instead of like Tuesday, which is when I'm recording it. Just that way it'll be a bit quicker and you guys can actually see what legends you're supposed to be playing at the start of patch. But thank you for watching.